Couldn't resist.
Hello and welcome to Record Sports Hotline Live, brought to you by NordVPN. My name is Angus Hyde, I've got it right today, and today I am joined by Ryan McDonald and Gannon live from Celtic Park. Lads, how's it going?
Yeah, for you, Angus, well done.
Well done, Angus. Got to a good start tonight. Off to a flyer, getting the name right this time.
I know we can be seeing all these new signings that have been coming in that have looked like Scrabble table rage baits, and I can't even say my name, but here we are. Lads, number one question, Ryan, have you got long johns out or are you just staying inside tonight?
No, I've got a couple of layers on tonight. So maybe not quite a winter's night, but you always need to prepare for these European nights. We've certainly missed them, so I'm well wrapped up.
The great thing, Angus, we're in this very salubrious Celtics media marquee, or as what a Dutch journalist called it last year, the big Wendy Hoos. The big Wendy Hoos, which if it starts bucketing, you'll hear it rattling.
It's a circus tent.
It's the big top here. Very luxurious working conditions at Celtic for us media, but it's fine. We're dry for the time being. It was bucketing down the way in. It could be a wet and wild night tonight, I think.
Well, at least we know if it's a circus talk, we're in the right place. Anyway, moving on, we will we'll obviously get to the massive game happening tonight at Celtic Park. Later on, we'll be joined by Andy Newport and Scott McDermott, and we'll be talking about Rangers. But of course, lads, it all comes to tonight. There is so much on the line for Celtic tonight. It's worth a fortune. Just kick us off with that. How are Celtic going to approach this?
The money, I don't think the money's even. It obviously helps. It's more about the prestige for Celtic. I think it's getting to that. Celtic think they're a Champions League club, don't they? Mm-hmm. So they should be in the Champions League, and they have to get by this tie. It's I think it's torturous. I think this is it's tough a tie they could have got this stage. I think LASK are a dangerous team. If this was Sturm Graz or it was RB Salzburg, people would be quite jittery. I think they've been a bit underrated. LASK, when they're not a particularly glamorous team. They won the league. A wee bit surprised how they won the league last year. The first time in about 60 years.
61, yeah.
But they're a big, strong team, and they've clearly got a bit about them. They haven't lost many players from last year. I think one or two. But usually when the team like LASK win a league, they get plundered. Not really happened. They've kept a lot of their good players. A real tough test for Celtic. But they have to get through this tie. There's no buts and maybe about it. If they don't get through this tie, there'll be questions asked, because this is where Celtic believe they should be.
Yeah, the thing is, we're only 3 games into the season, but I mean, already this is probably the biggest game of the season in terms of financial anyway, because I know obviously Celtic get plenty of money in the bank, and earning another £40 million might not be the top priority of fans, but you know, when it comes to attracting, like Mick says, the sheer prestige of winning in the Champions League, when it comes to attracting a certain calibre of player, you know, Celtic have still got business to do after this Champions League qualifier, so that will certainly help them as well. And I think Celtic just really need to be there. You know, this season marks the 60th anniversary of the Lisbon Lions conquering Europe, and you know, I think Celtic, that should be an added onus for Celtic to qualify and do themselves proud. And like Mick says, you know, LASK, I think they're a very dangerous opponent. They've been free scoring at the start of this season. They play 3-5-2. They're very much a physical side as well. And I don't quite think that they are going to be coming here and, you know, it'll be backs against the wall and they'll settle for a draw. I think they're coming here I really don't think they've got anything to lose. They've never actually qualified for the Champions League before, so I don't think they'll be adjusting their system too much, because obviously it served them well last season where they won a double for the first time, as Mick says, in over 60 years. So I think this is a real dangerous tie for Celtic, and Mark O'Neill, I think the difference from last year's, I'm sure you'll touch upon with the Kyrie Almaty disaster, is they're kind of threadbare in certain areas like midfield and right back with Alisson Johnson injured, but I think the difference is they've got real quality and difference makers up front, Casper Hu and Camilo Duran. So Mark O'Neill and the Celtic fans will be hoping that those two guys in particular can make the difference.
All right, listen, the big question all summer is, and this tie's been hanging over Celtic for months and months, and the big question is, will Celtic be ready for the Champions League playoff? And the question can't be answered until tonight. Mm-hmm. We'll find out if they're going to be ready. I have some doubts. I think they could have been better prepared for this tie than they have been. I think Ryan's right. I think the ones that they brought in I think Duran and who have been looking really promising. I think we're done with Bauer and Hassan being the door 2 or 3 weeks ago. They're not, which means they're not quite up to speed, which means that's a big ask, especially for Bauer, who might have to come in tonight. I think that starting 11 anyway, even with those two not quite up to it yet, I think should be good enough. But the problem is if things start to go a wee bit wrong, if there's a wee hamstring injury there or a wee sore knee there, all of a sudden you start picking away at that squad, Celtic are going to have problems. And by the way, these 180 minutes could be fraught. So I would expect some problems. Somebody limping off here or somebody pulling up or somebody getting tired. And that's when we're going to start to find out how much Celtic are ready. And they better be. They really better be. Because they've had long enough to prepare for it.
I mean, the thing is, you talk about Celtic being ready. They're an injury away to Bill Sinisalo from Ross Doohan stepping in goals, and an injury away from Kieran Tierney, and Liam Scales been shifted at left back again. So, you know, as I say, they're really light in certain areas, right back as well. I think that's just unfortunate with Alistair Johnson. That's just luck playing against you. He's obviously going to be a big miss. I mean, Arnie Ingles has obviously left as well, and they've not properly replaced him. I think Martin Neal was very cute with his words yesterday, Mick, wasn't he? But you can tell that I think he's a bit agitated the fact that they've not managed to get a replacement in for Arnie, because let's be honest, this is what the press boys were talking about yesterday. In the case of Engels, everybody knew he was on his way out for months. Probably since last summer. You probably thought he's going to get another year out of him, and then they'll sell him on for big bucks. That's what's inevitably happened. And you knew certainly from January there would obviously been a gentleman agreement between Martin O'Neill and the player. Look, stick with us to the end of the season. We'll let you go when a big money bid comes in. That arrived. The player wanted to go to West Ham. Celtic should have had, like they did with Dyson Maeda leaving. As soon as Dyson Maeda left, they had Casper Hu ready and to be paraded. That should have been the case with Arnie Ingles leaving. And a like-for-like replacement in the door for this Champions League qualifier. It's not happened. So, yeah, I think their starting 11 is still pretty strong. But like Mick says, my concern is the options off the bench at the minute. And with Mika Bauer and especially Hassan, I don't think he's going to be able to make an impact. Famous last words, but he looked really rusty coming off the bench. He's not had much pre-season at all. So, you really ideally want those guys in the door earlier. But look, I think on paper, certainly with the starting 11, Celtic are in decent shape going into this.
I would argue that the Engels replacement should be in the door before Engels actually left. Yeah. I mean, Martin O'Neill was talking about in pre-season. We were out in Portugal and he was talking about it as if that he was expecting him to go. I mean, I think the way he spoke about Maeda, Engels and Hatate was almost in the past tense. So I think they knew he was likely to go. They also knew that after a good World Cup, that Arsenal was going to be an interest as well. I mean, as it turned out, he's got injured. So I would argue they should have had replacements for these guys lined up to come in even before the guys go. I know that's a bit of a gamble because things can change. We saw it with Sharmiti at Rangers, we saw it with Johnson myself, and you could be stuck with a £10 million midfield player and Arnie Ingles still on the books. But I think Celtic are playing with fire a wee bit when it comes to these qualifiers by not doing that. It's almost like I don't think Celtic act as though these playoffs have jumped out the bushes. Like, it's been hiding there for months. It's been in the books for a long time. Likewise, when players leaving, I mean, Martin sitting on Friday talking about, we'll now need to go and get a replacement for Engels. And you're thinking, this is not just to come out of nowhere. But when we talked about it in January, certainly the start of the summer. So I just think Celtic, I know it's hard to get quality in early, but this game is so big. This is a cup final for Celtic. They can't muck about with it. And I just think they have, again, gambled a wee bit. And it's brought more jeopardy into the tie than need be. Having said that, I still think they should have enough to beat LASK. And we saw Sturm Graz here last year. They were all right. But Celtic, at a time, they weren't playing particularly great. I thought they dealt with them fairly straightforwardly. I don't think it's going to be that kind of game. Obviously, that's a Europa League tie, so it's different. There's not the same jeopardy. This is a cup tie where it's all or nothing over two legs. So that creates a different environment as well. But if they're a similar kind of level or slightly above that, I mean, Celtic should be enough to deal with them. But it's a two-legged tie with all at stake, so anything could happen. So it's in the balance, that's for sure.
Yeah, well, looking at LASK, their transfer record is under 2.5 million. Looking at that, you rarely get to say this with Celtics, with the Scottish sides, that we are outspending the European competition, but looking at that, you've got the kind of goals of the last year's campaign with Kairat Almaty. How do kind of Celtic overcome that? And with that kind of knowledge that the squad isn't quite there yet.
But Angus, you can go back. Listen, not just Kairat. I mean, look, so last Kairat, you can go back to Malmo, Maribor, Cluj, Athens, maybe something similar. Ferencvaros. These teams that all had Michelin. These teams all had budgets less than Celtic, and they came a cropper, and that's why Celtic fans are haunted by these ties. I mean, they really are. You walk on the street and you can see them coming in. They're like, this is terrifying for Celtic fans because listen, they've been bumped out in the last 9 times they've been asked to qualify. They've been bumped out 7 times. They've only managed it twice under Brendan Rodgers 10 years ago. So there's a reason why these ties are fraught with danger. And Celtic have came a cropper on too many of them. I don't think if they come a cropper again, they'll be serious questions asked. But like I say, I think they've got enough, but it's going to be tense.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. It's, like Mick says, it's actually the last 5 Champions League qualifying campaigns they've failed to negotiate the final hurdle. So obviously it's a daunting prospect for Celtic, and that just like you say, it just adds even more intrigue into this tie and whether they'll be able to finally break that hoodoo. But it's a pretty appalling qualifying record. But I think Celtic, especially you look at last year, as I say, I just compare the 2 squads, and I do think that, I know fans will be agitated that more business hasn't been done, but I do think they are in a better place than they were this time last year. You look at the forward options they had last year. They had a one-away Dyson Maeda up front who missed a sitter in each game when he's played through in 1-on-1. His mind wasn't quite there. They had a Swansea City-bound Adam Ida, who again, his head was on the earning more money down at Swansea City. And then you had Shin Yamada, who Brendan Rodgers just quite simply didn't fancy. And he was out the door in January, he's out the door on loan again this year. So you compare that to the forward options they've got just now. 2 Champions League proven strikers in Casper who scored 6 last year, and Camilo Duran, who scored 5 in the competition. So I think, as I say, I keep going back to it, but I think that is the real difference. And look, maybe it's just a kind of hypothetical question, but if you were to give me the option of retaining, and by the way, I was one of Arnie Engels' biggest fans. I thought he was real quality, especially on his day. You saw it come on his final appearance, what he is capable of. Maybe didn't do it consistently enough in a Celtic jersey, but I think he was a completely different profile to what they have in there. But if you're looking at game changers, which is the key difference here in such definitive ties, I think that if you were to give me the option of keeping Arnie Engels or Benjamin Nygren, who started the season on fire, I would much rather have Benjamin Nygren on the side just now. You know, he's got 6 goal contributions in 3 games. I know there was talk of a big money exit. It could potentially still be a big money exit in the cards, especially if Celtic lose this Champions League qualifier. But I think, again, the link-up play, I mentioned it in last night's Hotline Live, Angus, I think that the arrival of Casper Who is not only reinvigorated the team, but I think he's lifted the entire club, and you can see already the connection that Casper Who's building with Benjamin Nygren, and I think Who is getting the best out of Nygren in that advanced role, because he is a recognised penalty box striker, and Nygren, as we know, is so prolific and creative. So again, I think I think he can make a difference tonight as well. And it's just a case of who comes in. I think if I fancy Mika Bauer to start. I don't think he'll complete the full 90 minutes. He'll probably get Luke McCown, who'll probably come off the bench tonight. Rio Hatate, there's been question marks over him. I'm not convinced he's got much left to give Celtic, in all honesty. He hasn't really produced much in the last 2 years, so I wouldn't be hanging my hat on him. So yeah, it'll be interesting.
He had a few good displays in Europe last year. I'm saying that Rio Hatate.
Yeah, the purple patch.
I think I take the point. He looks a goner, but
yeah, the purple patch.
I'm looking back to Sturm Graz game, final away. But actually, Bologna away, he had a stormer for half an hour. Then he still set off a moment of madness. So he has got it in him. But I think you're right. He's so far out in the box.
I think mentally he's not all in.
Martin, I think it's almost kind of dismissed him a wee bit. We're surprised to see him tonight, but they could do with him. They could really do with him.
Do you not think that Hatate looking for that top 5 league move though? Surely he looks at this. If he does get the opportunity, he's going to stick in. If nothing.
That should have happened last season.
Exactly.
It should have happened last season.
The year before.
It didn't. I mean, he wasn't used. I think he got less than an hour of football in the last 6-7 games of the season. After the defeat at Tannadice, I think he only played about an hour of football off the bench for the run-in. It hasn't featured at all this season. So clearly, I don't think there was an actual falling out as such.
No.
I think there was just a change in attitude that Martin O'Neill didn't really like. And if you kind of get in the wrong side of Martin O'Neill, like Brendan Rodgers before him, and like most top managers, if they take the nip with you, you're gone. If they do the fact they think you're a bit, if you've gone off if you've lost your edge or you're not got the right attitude, you're out the picture. And that's what's happened with Hatate, and it's a bit of a shame for him and for Celtic, because he's been a terrific player for a number of years. and he'd be very handy tonight. I mean, it's a guy he started both games against Carriat last year instead of Engels. Engels didn't start those 2 games. It was Hatate. I'm fairly sure that was the case. At least one of them. But it's a player that he's got on the books that he doesn't seem to have available. Which is again, it's left Celtic with absolutely Chamberlain out suspended and Engels away. Bernardo away as well. It's left Celtic looking very light in there.
Well, I know Hatate's obviously, I think he's rejected offers from the MLS, Austria as well, and a couple of other clubs. But, if, like you say, Angus, this is an opportunity for him if he comes off the bench tonight to get that move to the top 5 league. Because that's what he wants. He wants a top elite to play in a top 5 European league. And, if he can come off the bench today and make a difference and the same next week, I think, what a way to bow out. And I think it might add a couple of extra pounds onto his value as well, because at this minute, 2 years ago, you're probably talking about a £15 million player. I think Celtic be lucky to get four or five for him at the minute.
Yeah.
So he can definitely put himself back in the short market tonight if he can come off the bench and make a difference. But I'm pretty sceptical.
Listen, he wants a top 5 league. If I want to go to Kelly Book in a date, that's not going to happen unless I scrub myself up and look the part. So he should be kicking the door down. I've done a bit for our website yesterday. Should be kicking the door down and saying, listen, you can count on me. Give me a chance to go and show what I can do, and that might get him in the move to somewhere, like Ryan's saying. But he seems to have kind of got into this bit of a funk that he can't shake off. But if he can get out of it, it could be handy. But as I say, I can't see it now. I would be surprised. It does make it interesting middle of the park because Bauer maybe not feel up to speed. No. The concern that I would have as well is that this is a big. I had a wee look at LASK over the weekend. By the way, they're like Game of Thrones. By the way, they're absolutely massive, right through the team, not just at the back and the front, right through the team. They're monsters. They're very direct. They're not shy lumping the ball at the park. None of this they're not like the kind of the Red Bull teams like Salzburg and things like that. They don't do the high press thing. They're not running about like daft. They just get it up the park very quickly. A couple of wingers that are tricky as well. It looks like you can get the ball in the box. They're very kind of I'm not saying basic, but a very kind of direct style. The manager's a bit of a kind of an old stager. He's actually kind of viewed as a bit kind of old school, isn't he? A bit kind of grumpy, but he likes him playing direct.
Certainly was last night.
There's no passing the ball, no knocking the ball. Was he grumpy last night?
Was it?
He said, I heard that. Someone warned me that he's a grumpy so. But he'll not be mucking about the back. The defenders at back 3 won't be knocking it about and mucking about the back. We're getting the ball up the park sharp, getting it out wide, and trying to get. They're not scared to give the ball away. That's what I mean. So I can see a lot of turnovers in the park. So that middle of the park's going to be a real fighting ground for scraps between both sides.
That's the thing. I think Mick's right to point that out. They are a real physical side, and they've got a couple of proper units in there. Obviously, the big American boy up front as well. He's
6'5" or something.
A powerhouse. He's scored 5 goals in 4 games this season, and he scored 15 or 16 last year as well. So I think just like any other team, Angus, as well, I think LASK will target Celtic. I think their lack of height at times makes them very vulnerable, especially from set pieces. I know obviously Ross Grant's come in. They've scored a couple of set pieces already this season. One from Command, albeit it was a bit fluky, and then there was a textbook one at the weekend at Tannadice with Austin Trusty with a brilliant glancing header. But at the other end, I still think they're really weak and really vulnerable. I don't think they've got much height in the team. And again, that's where Arnie Engels is going to be a massive miss, because you look at who's replacing Engels, either be Luke McCowan or Mika Bauer, who are both about the size of myself. So there's no much.
He stands in the box, by the way.
no much height there. So I think definitely set pieces is somewhere where I think LASK will have worked on, and it's an area where they can really hurt Celtic, and keep an eye on that tonight.
I've heard that the big boy up front apparently is about 6'4", 6'5", and someone said to me that he doesn't look the quickest, but when he gets up ahead of steam, he'll be quite quick. I'm like, well, probably because people get out of the way of him. If you've got a guy at 6'5" running towards you, just step aside and wish him all the best. So I think they're going to be a real physical test. So I'm interested to see how they line up.
Ryan and I were talking yesterday about how the woodwork was a massive factor for Celtic keeping that clean sheet at the weekend.
The post.
Does that worry at all going into this fixture for Celtic? Obviously, the right back slot's filled by Colby Donovan. A big step up for him, but obviously Tierney on the other side playing very, very well.
I mean, I won't repeat my point I made yesterday, so I'll let Mick do this one. But in terms of Colby Donovan, I think that He's only 19 years old. I think when he stepped in last season, actually, I think he performed somehow really. I actually thought he performed better on the European stage last season than he did domestically. There's always a game that stuck out in the back of my mind, which was Belgrade.
Yeah, Scotland, Belgrade played well in Bologna as well, I think.
Yep, he did. And I remember speaking to Brendan Rodgers just as well, waiting to speak to him. He said, "Well, he came over to us and went, oh, what a game young Kobe had."
Yeah, a stormer in Belgrade.
And he was excellent that night. And I think that was really the coming of age of him. And I think he spoke to the press after that as well, for his first real interview, and he just seemed to have a real mature head on his shoulders. And look, I find it really interesting that despite the lack of right back options, Anthony Ralston's not even making the matchday squad. I mean, this is a Scotland international who was involved at the World Cup. So I think that tells you where his place in the pecking order is at the minute, and how much trust and faith that Martin O'Neill has in young Colby Donovan. So look, I think he's not really let Celtic down. I think he's actually performed pretty well in Europe in the past year. So I think he should be okay. I think he's okay going forward as well. We had a couple of assists last season, but I'll let Mick take this point on. But as I touched upon yesterday on yesterday's show, Angus, I think Celtic are. There's a breakdown somewhere between the defence and midfield. They're leaking far too many chances, as we've seen at Tannadice. They would deny Dundee United 5 times, and then Kilmarnock, and the scoreline was at 1-0 Celtic. Kilmarnock, I don't know how they never scored. But.
I think you're right. I think Cody in games he's got to stay switched on. He can be better. I think he can be decent defensively. I think he's good going forward. It's the defensive aspect is a question mark. I think the knock-on effect might be that you might see. Listen, we'll find out probably in about 10 minutes. So I could be proved wildly wrong. I suspect they might have Yang in front of him because Yang has improved in the last year defensively. No end. I mean, I still think his end product's well up for debate, to say the least. But I think defensively, I think he is definitely improved. He's taken a leaf out the Dyson Maida handbook in terms of defensively. So I wouldn't be surprised to see Yang. And he's look, I'm just seeing he's copying his haircut as well. Yeah. Imitation is the greatest form of flattery, apparently. It's like me and Jason Statham. We're both gone bald. What was I saying? So Yang, I think Yang might be the insurance policy in front of Donovan, which means on the other side, I think you could see Tanecki playing. The thought was, would Yang go left, perhaps, or would he play right, or would he connect? Tanecki? When you did that, do you play Duran wide right with Yang left?
I think Yang starts right.
I just think if it was me, I would think maybe a wee bit of insurance policy because LASK are dangerous in the wings as well. So and I would maybe be tempted to go with that. And on the other side, you've got Tierney and Tanecki who I think are okay together. Tanecki is a second half player right enough. He always plays better in the second half of games. But I don't know. I can see. It depends how adventurous Neil wants to go. If he wants to say, right, you know what, we're going to go try and get a lead. Duran goes wide right. You can cut inside. But that maybe exposes Donovan a wee bit. So it's still, I keep saying it's the line I use in this all the time, it's still kind of blanket that's not quite long enough routine. You pull it up to your head warm and your feet get cold, pull it down to your feet warm and your head gets cold. It's a difficult one for them to get the balance right. And that's why Neil's paid the big bucks, but I don't know.
I mean, I think for me, Duran's got to start wide right. Mick and I have watched him every game this season, even in pre-season as well. He's very much a left-footed player. I think Celtic have worked on different movements, different patterns of play to allow him to cut inside and take an effort with his left foot. So I think with that in mind, I think they'd be reluctant to swap him to the other flank. But like we've seen it so often, the wide players rotate mid-game quite often, so that could quite easily happen. But I think it's a very valid point that Mick makes.
You think Yang going to the left side then?
But I think it's a valid point you make about his defensive work rate and how he could. I never really considered that. To be honest.
Just to kind of, I mean, I think Donovan is a good young prospect, but just that insurance policy.
I think to start off with,
I think Duran is a player who wants to get forward at all times, whereas I think Yang has added that defensive element to his game. I thought he had a kind of poor game the other week going forward, but I think he was good defensively. But it depends how fit he is as well. I mean, that's the thing. He was obviously out last week, so we don't know. But I just think the other areas I think we're talking about being prepared and Celtic ready. I still think on the flanks. Yeah. I mean, Hassan could be done with another 3 or 4 weeks pre-season. Unfortunately, that wasn't possible. So it's left Celtic look a wee bit light in the wide areas and the middle of the park and at right back. So apart from that, they look ready. Apart from that, Celtic are ready to go. Dr. Doom here. Must be I think it's the weather, Angus. I think it's the weather.
Bring back the sun in August. We're already. In fact, I'm asking you about long johns in August. Is telling you everything, boys. But looking at that, 40 million in the line, the Lisbon Lion aspect as well. Does Celtic pull this off?
I think they do. I think I've just got a sneaky suspicion that they could win. It could be 3-1 tonight. I do think that LASK will score. Wouldn't be surprised if they score first. I think it's important. I think it's pretty much a sellout crowd in here tonight. I think it's important that to be fair, I don't think the Celtics will do tend to turn on them that early, but I think it's important that the fans stick with them tonight, because they're going to need all the backing they can get. I think, as we touched upon in last night's show, Celtic just don't have much luck when it comes to being drawn out the hat for the to have home advantage for the second leg. More often than not, they seem to be at home first despite being seeded. So I think with that in mind, Celtic really need to win tonight. If not, I'd fear for them next week in Austria. But I just feel with the firepower they've got up front, I think they can maybe get minimum of 2 goals. I've said 3-1 in my prediction, so I'll stick with that. But I definitely think LASK will score. But it's going to be a nervy night regardless.
I actually have more confidence in Celtic going into the second leg, because what I saw at Tandy this weekend is how good Celtic were on the counter-attack. I mean, weirdly, Celtic played on the counter against United the weekend. I mean, United were putting them back, pinning them back, and Celtic were lethal on the break. So I think if they can go there with a narrow lead, I think they've been in a great position to go to Austria next week.
Problem is, mate, they've leaked too many chances against a higher calibre crop.
This is the thing. I think they will take a lead there, but I think it'll be a narrow one. I think. Oh no, this is what they put in prediction. 2-1. So I'm glad you never forgot what I put. I think I said 2-1. I'm going to stick with that. I think Celtic will take a lead to Austria, which I think will stand in a good stead. So I think counter-attack wise, they've got a bit of pace now. Another week they might have Hassan up and run a bit better more as well, who's rapid. I think they'll get the job done tonight, but I don't think it's going to be straightforward. I think it's going to be a tense night, and then another tense night next week.
Well, from what you've been saying, we all know goals win games, and Celtic have been putting the money in the goals to bring in goal scorers anyway. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes. But boys, I'll let you guys jump off and get to it. Thank you very much, boys. Cheers.
No worries.
Cheers,
we'll catch you later on.
All the best. Cheers.
All the best.
Cheers, guys. So moving on, moving across the city, obviously Rangers are prepping for their tie against Jablonec in the Conference League. Massive game for Rangers as well after the disappointing result at the end of last week. Followed that up with a good response against St Mirren at the weekend, and then obviously today they announced the signing of Serbian defender. Now don't get on me in the comments with this. Kosta Nedeljekovic, massive kind of so another signing brought in the door, one of many here at Rangers. So let's see. Our boys were sitting listening to Derek McInnes, who was talking to the press today. Let's hear what he had to say.
Of course, there's what you get is that similar to Vanya, really, but in a full-back position, real enthusiasm, athleticism to got him down the pitch. Shows good quality, real eagerness to play the role. And when it's somebody so young, there's obviously going to be still areas to improve, but we look forward to try to get those improvements with him. But his eagerness to come here was clear, and the conversations we had with him a few weeks ago at the outset, after speaking to him and him speaking to us, it was something we were always keen to try and do.
You've also got James in as well. Do you feel as if you are beginning to build and get to where you want to be for the squad?
Yeah, well, I think, delighted that we managed to get James, as I said, Sunday. I think the ability to react to Tua's injury and being in a transfer window allowed us to do that. But, grateful for the fact that we could bring James in, and I think he showed for his performance that he's got a lot to give us. It's two full-back areas that we look a bit stronger than we did a week ago, because we were really light. So we've addressed that pretty swiftly, thankfully. But we still have what to do towards the top end of the pitch, clearly. I've said earlier that they're the toughest ones at times to get. They're the ones with the bigger ticket a lot of times, the ones where we're keen to really address, because they're the ones that can make the difference for us. So I do think if we can get the right ones in those areas, it'll change the whole dynamic of the team.
Derek, Nico's obviously your captain at the weekend. Are you surprised at how long you've actually had him, and is it difficult at the back of your mind you're maybe still preparing for life without him if a bid comes in?
Yeah, I think coming into this with my eyes wide open, knowing that Nico was a potential flight risk. Obviously, he was still in the World Cup when I came in, and having a couple of conversations with him. we were keen for him to do well there, obviously, and come back to us in good form. But it's like everything else. Every player's got a price. Every player has got a time where it's maybe suits them to move on, suits the club or whatever. But I think it's important for me that to say that I think Nico's been a dream since we came in terms of how he's set about his work, and he doesn't look like a boy who's distracted in any way with that. I've no doubt there's a lot of stuff going on in the background with him, and I've no doubt there's going to be plenty of conversations being had about Nico, but I think I just need to play it by ear, really, to be honest, and if somebody tells me differently, then that changes things, but no, I'm enjoying working with him, as they said. No, I think when you've got a boy like Lawrence who knows how he's way about penalty box, he knows how to score goals, and he takes that role and that responsibility on, then you understand that it's. I never worry too much about that, especially with somebody like Lawrence, because he's too good not to get scoring on a regular basis, and he's consistently shown over a period of time in the Premier League 20 odd goals return every season of Hearts, and for me he's I think people can over emphasise these sort of things, and sometimes for me it's just a case of just let the ball be and just let him play his natural game, and the best strikers, as we all know, is having that instinctive part to the game. Everything looks really natural and seamless, and I've no doubt that he's going to do well.
Yeah, well, Derek McInnes there, giving his thoughts as they go into this crucial European match, one that I think they should expect to be getting a positive result from, but of course it's European knockout football, isn't it? So we'll hear from, unfortunately, Scotty McDermott and Andy Newport aren't here to join us live, but they were speaking about Rangers on the Record Rangers podcast, and I'll let you guys hear a wee bit from that. You can listen to the full thing on our website.
We've just been up this morning to see Derek McInnes ahead of tomorrow night's big conference. I don't know if you can call it that. No, I think reasonable, medium-sized conference league playoff.
I think you get the final, it's quite big.
So Jablonec, again, my lack of pronunciation skills are going to let me down here. Jablonec, is that how I pronounce it? Jablonec, yeah, right, okay. Yeah, we'll hit and hope and try and get through as best we can. What was obviously a busy day this morning. Costa Nadal Jukovic again.
That's a decent
that's better than my usual affairs. He's obviously
Let's
signed.
Just call him Costa.
He's signed on a season-long loan with an obligation to buy. What do you make of the updates on that one today?
I think on the face of it looks like a decent signing for Rangers. It's obviously a conditional obligation to buy, which I'm assuming is the amount of games he's going to play between now and the end of the season. I think it's definitely an area they had to strengthen. I know Dujon Sterling played there at the weekend and did well, and I actually think Dujon Sterling, if he can stay fit and gets a run of games at right back for Rangers, he can be a really good right back. He's just never had that opportunity, and even when he did have a period where he was at full fitness, he was often used in midfield or out wide. So he can certainly do a job at right back. But I think getting the Serbian boy into Villa is a good signing. 20 years old, really highly rated at Villa. He was on loan obviously last season at RB Leipzig. Maybe didn't play as much as he'd hoped. I think he had a couple of injuries there as well. But I mean, I think they were ready to try and buy him at one point for 10, 50 million quid. He's a Serbian international already. From what I've heard, speaking to some people that know him, very quick, very strong, very athletic, getting up and down the pitch. Maybe not technically as good as a James Tavernier, for instance, who everybody will probably try and compare him to. But yeah, I think on the face of it, it's another decent signing. But as Derek McInnes said today, I mean, he sorted out the two full-back positions, but yet again, and he is sounding a bit like a broken record, he needs players in the final third. He wants more more attacking options, and I think that's got to be the priority now between now and the end of the window.
Just before we go on to discuss that, and all the areas at the top end of the pitch he's still looking to fill, but as interesting that again, you look at last season, the defence, it was packed with guys that were here on loan, and I think you could tell there was a sort of temporary feel about the squad at times last season. There was guys there you weren't really sure if they had that long-term commitment to the club, and I think that sort of played out in the way that basically the season fell apart. There was these guys there that it mattered not really a jot to them whether they won or lost last year, but again Rangers find themselves with a back four, mostly of which is made up of loan signings. But I suppose the difference is you look at obviously Nedeljkovic, an obligation to buy, Ben Godfrey, option to buy him as well once he's back, and obviously James Penrice again, an option to buy him. Is this sort of buy, try before you buy kind of set up? Does that make no sense here in the sort of just the straight loans we saw last year?
Yeah, I think it does. I mean, people will probably still be critical, and you look at a Rangers back four, and as you say, potentially could have 3 loan signings in it. So I mean that's fair enough, but I agree with you. I think it is slightly different in terms of the personnel, in terms of the deals that Rangers have struck, in terms of the profiles of the players as well. I mean, we spoke to James Penrice after his debut on Sunday, and it's quite clear. I mean, he is determined to be a Rangers player next season already, and he's only had 1 game. So you would think, if everything goes to plan, he will be signed. Same with the Serbian boy for Villa. As I said, 20 years old. The deal that they've struck, depending on games, is a clear indication Rangers are wanting to buy him and see him as a future Rangers player. So it is slightly different. You think last year guys like Nasser Giga, for instance, who you just always felt, Wolves had signed him for about 10 million.
He was on £70,000 a week down the road,
exactly.
So he wasn't going to happen.
No, he was always going to go back to Wolves. So I agree, there was that kind of feeling of maybe a kind of lack of commitment for a couple of these guys, but it is different this time. Nobody's saying it's perfect, nobody's saying it's ideal, but they're in a slightly different position this season.
Just, going back to Sunday's game, obviously, first win of the season, it's been the result that Derek McInnes has been waiting for. Huge sort of weight off his shoulders. You could see that even when the first goal goes in. I was sitting next to you, Scott, during the game, and as soon as that first goal goes in, I turn to you, you can see Derek McInnes down the touchline. You can see he's punching the air. As soon as the second goal goes in, again, that the relief just seemed to come off. The pressure seemed to come off him. Came back on right off as soon as St. got to go back. But just in terms of a 5-1 win, getting a few goals, a bit of confidence, what difference can that do to this team, considering how tough they've had it at the start of the season?
It should give them an injection of confidence at the very least. And I totally agree. I mean, the relief. You think that first goal for Ryan Nadiri, I mean, the relief on Nadiri's face and on Derek McInnes' face was pretty evident. And then even the second goal goes in for Dragojevic. Again, I looked at Derek McInnes and he just kind of looked to the sky. You think, thank God, finally got a two-goal lead in a game. So, listen, it's the most obvious thing to say. He really needed that victory. I agree. I think it looked, even after the game, it looked as if a weight had been lifted off his shoulders. But look, it's only 1 game. He'll have been pleased, quite rightly. 5 goals, and it could have been more. I mean, they could have got 7 or 8 with the chances that they had. But it is just 1 game, and it's pointless producing that for 1 game if they don't then go and follow up. And I know they've no game at the weekend, but they've actually getting a tough run of fixtures coming up, pretty hectic. The European tie, their next league game I think is away to Aberdeen. They've now got the Celtic Cup tie thrown in September as well. It's obviously an Old Firm double header, so there's no rest for Rangers. It's they have to build on that win for Sunday.
I was on Hotline Live last night with Angus, and we were discussing Manny Fernandes. And for me, this game tomorrow night against Jablonec is a huge game for me for Manny Fernandes, because I think right now with Ben Godfrey preparing to come back for the second leg over Czech Republic, I think Derek McInnes right now is minded to bring him straight back in, because I think Manny Fernandes is really struggling compared to his form last season when he gets so much praise. I think he's a guy that looks like he is, maybe caution's the wrong word, but he doesn't have that pressure of somebody breathing down his right. has lost a wee bit of his mojo and maybe needs to come out the team for a wee spell just to get his, maybe rediscover a wee bit of his confidence. Definitely stay up his focus levels. That's been the thing we've spoken about him for so long. But I mean, obviously, I think you asked the question today to Eric McInnes. I mean, what's your own feeling on that? What do you think his future is in the next couple of weeks? Is he got to be worried about his position?
Well, put it this way, Andy, I think as it stands now, if the Villa boy who's come in at right back is fit and available, which we think he is, it'll be in Derek McInnes' mind now. I'm not saying he's going to do it, but it will be in his mind now. Could he start him at right back and play Sterling alongside McCann at centre back? That's how poor I think Emmanuel Fernandez's form's been at the start of the season. I don't think the lack of competition and the lack of defenders at the back has helped the manager or Fernandez, because the players pretty much known that he's going to play every game, because they've had no centre backs at the start of the season for one reason or another. But I agree with you. I think his concentration levels and his focus levels have been really poor in the game so far. His game awareness, game intelligence, to me, just hasn't been there. I think I said it myself the other night at the hotline when there was one moment at the weekend. I think it was Rangers had just scored the second goal.
Yeah.
The whole crowd was up. They were singing. There was a real positive feel about the place again. 2-0 up after an absolute screamer for Dragojevic. And literally St Mirren's first attack after that, Fernandez dilly-dallies the ball, he hesitates, he's too casual. He gets in a tangle with Sula, the St Mirren striker, and they win a corner, and in a split second, the whole crowd just turned, and they were all on Fernandez's back.
And that's what Derek McInnes said after the game. They cannot be. This team is still fragile, still vulnerable to one moment. One moment can turn the whole mood, and you can see it. And I think the fans are just as susceptible to that. But it was from that, just flicker of that change of mindset within the stadium. A couple of minutes later, then obviously Dragicevic gets caught with a short pass to Raskin, and it's a fantastic strike from Chris Mockery. But this is where this club, this team, and its individuals within it, still don't have that robust nature about them that they can shrug off a mistake. One mistake sends them into a tailspin.
But that's where it comes down to Fernandez's mindset for me, Andy, and his game intelligence. As a player, knowing everything that you've said there about fragility and vulnerability and where Rangers have been, if you're a player or you're a centre-back and you go 2-0 up and you hear the crowd are up and it's positive, there's a positive energy about the place, when that ball gets knocked over the top, you need to realise the only thing they want you to do is just clear your lines there and just deal with it. And that would have continued the positive energy for him. But instead, Fernandez has almost took the opposite attitude of, well, we're 2-0 up now, it's fine.
I can take
a chance. Yeah. That has to change. I mean, you're right. That's been what's wrong. What's been wrong here for far too long. And I'm just amazed. I'm amazed that we're a year on for Fernandez coming in. When he actually said when he arrived that he felt concentration, that was maybe his biggest weakness and he had to improve on it. It's a worry for me that a couple of different managers now have obviously tried to drill it into him about staying focused, and it doesn't seem to be working. I mean, this is a boy that was Rangers Player of the Year last season. People forget when fans voted him Player of the Year, linked with big moves in the summer. I don't know whether even that's maybe went his head a wee bit. You wouldn't like to think so, but you never know. And I just think if he doesn't switch on pretty soon, I agree with you. I think when Ben Godfrey's back fit, he'll probably come straight back in, and Fernandez will also have to sit it out. And listen, that might help him. But as I say, that lack of competition, if he comes out the team, realises he's got really good players to compete with if he wants to play for Rangers, it might actually do him a world of good.
Well, thanks to Andy and Scott for that one come from the press conference. Main questions are, can Rangers get the job done? Is this Manny Fernandez's chance to right his wrongs of the start of the season? Let us know in the comments. And on that note, that brings us to the end of tonight's Hotline Live. Thank you to all of our contributors who came in, our sponsors, NordVPN, and of course to our viewers and our listeners. We'll be back tomorrow. We'll be previewing Rangers game tomorrow, and of course We've got Motherwell, Hibs and Hearts on the European trail as well. Keep the comments coming. We want to hear from you guys. That is what this show is all about. And yeah, we'll see you next time. Cheers.